Hi everyone, Diana Rankin here, along with Piper, who's taking a little nap in the back there. I think you can all see her. So I'm just going to kind of stay over here to the side so you can visit with Piper while we're talking on our afternoon here. So good to see all of you. For those of you who are, oh, my hair's caught on the back of my chair. Sorry about that. Good to see all of you who are here to be with us live, those of you who are able to make it, and those of you who are unable to make it, but come and see us, watch us during the week or whatever, whenever you catch this. So thank you. Appreciate your being here, and so appreciate your thumbs up. So appreciate your comments. I can't tell you how much that means to me. I get back to them as soon as I can, and it really, it just picks me up to know I'm not the only one out there. I'm not talking into the void. So thank you so much. Theo, greetings. Hope all is well. Theo, we are having an exceptionally, and she sends 6 butterflies. Thank you. We love, and this happens to be the monarch, uh, which I absolutely love. Thank you. We are doing well. Uh, Piper is settling in, and I'm still watching her and Lily Cat. They're still kind of who are you, checking each other out. But right now, everything seems to be working pretty well. So we have questions from our viewers. We have 2 questions today. We're going to get to those in just a moment. But I want to tell you that put your questions in the comments below, anyone who has a question. I do ask that they are general for our whole audience interest. If you have personal questions, my contact information is just in the information right below this video. So just give me a phone call or email me and we'll get you set up. International sessions are done usually on Zoom, whereas local sessions are done by phone. So wherever you are in the world, we can talk. All right. We will also get a message from Phillip, who is my spirit guide. And Theo says, what is a soul mission exactly? We're going to talk about that today. And hello, Anakala, my world, my beautiful friend from down under, says, greetings, Diana, Phillip, and everyone in the chat. Enjoy your weekend. And Julia Tanner says, happy Friday. Well, so good to see all of you. So we're going to get a message also right after we read what Phillip has to say about soul messages and callings. And that's what we're talking about today. And then, as you know, we just open to any page, and this is an oracle book, so we just get our message on that. Theo says, oh, she's sending beautiful fall leaves to our friend. And Theo is at Anakala World. Thank you. Okay, we know this is Theo now. Theo's much easier to say for me than Anakala. And I'm not sure I say that right, so forgive me if I don't. And she's saying, it's Theo for Juliet. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm misinterpreting this. Theo, and she's saying, sending fall leaves, and then to Juliet, she's saying happy Friday. So we have 3 people live here. Can you tell I didn't grow up with technology? And in fact, 11/11 is my birthday, so that's coming up next week, I think, next Friday. And I will turn 77. That comes up to a 5 in numerology. It's a number of freedom. So anyway, we will get our message from Phillip as well in this book. And I started to say, people have said they just sit down and read the book from cover to cover to get the wisdom. And I'm thinking, that's not how it'll help you. You can do that, but I think you'll just get kind of bored actually, or maybe confused, because there's no order to these different messages. These are just messages back in 1987. I think I put them down. And then years later came across because I did it for myself originally. And then years later came across the the notebook that I had them all in. And it was like, oh my gosh, I got to share this. And so that's how this book came about. We'll get our message in a minute. But let's go ahead and let's look at this. What Phillip has to say is, how do we know what our soul mission is? And how do we know if we're fulfilling it? Is this the same as a calling? So I learned that a soul mission and a calling are not the same thing. We have a second question, which really wasn't very clear. So if the person who asked this question would clarify what the question is. But a viewer writes that she keeps, quote, getting a question about drinking water. Please ask him, not sure what it is, end quote. So I'm not sure. I gave her some personal information in the comments, but didn't go very deep because I'm not real sure what the question is, but it may be a personal question. But he gives a quick answer on that. But mainly, let's get into soul missions and callings. All right. Phillip says, everyone's soul mission is to love. No surprise there, right? Or to live a life toward that end, whether in this life or another. How that is expressed in the human life is both personal and in the greater good of all. So how we express love in our lives in the human life is both personal and in the greater good of all. Sometimes both of those are hard, aren't they? Sometimes it's hard to love ourselves. And sometimes, loving others is not always easy. Phillip goes on to say, those who ask this question, I love this, have evolved to a level of spiritual development beyond that of most. This is not to say everyone does not have a soul's mission. Everyone does. It is to say that few are aware of having a soul mission or calling. Fewer still know that what this mission is, and even fewer listen and answer it. So if you're listening to this video, Phillip is telling you, you are rare in the human species. You are rare among others. Cherish yourself for that. But also that means you might want to live your soul's mission. So here we go. In a soul's mission and is a soul's mission and calling the same? Phillip says yes and no. Your soul's mission is the soul's story over your life, over all lifetimes. This will lead to the calling of its expression in each life. I'm going to read that because I think that's a tough one to really grasp. Is a soul's mission and calling the same? Yes and no. Your soul's mission is the soul's story over all your lifetimes. This will lead to the calling of its expression in each life. There you go. For example, your mission as agreed upon in your soul's contracts, the original when life was first given to you, and the one you made as you were about to enter life this time. So it's like we have this big soul contract, and then we have like maybe agendas that in our soul contract that we take out each lifetime, or redo it each lifetime. I'm not real sure about that. Phillip goes on to say, as we said, everyone's soul contract is to love, but how that is expressed is different. One might even experience a life that is unloving to know the truth and value of love. So the expression is then the calling, which may differ from lifetime to lifetime. We say may differ because there are those souls who do not wish to experience evil. These souls add the innocence of love to life in the earth dimension. So it's up to us what we choose to experience in order to fulfill our soul contract. But our soul contract is the contract we took out originally from that very first lifetime. And I think what Phillip is telling us here is we renew that and then say, okay, to fulfill that in this lifetime, this will be my calling. That's how I'm understanding it. you're allowed to understand it a little bit differently if that works for you. Philip goes on to say, the way to discover your soul's mission and the calling for this lifetime is to merely ask yourself questions and to examine your life. What were your interests as a child? What were you curious about? As you look at your life, you will find patterns. Within these patterns, you will find your soul's mission and also the calling to keep you fulfill that mission in this life. You know, I have done year-long workshops, year-long, meeting once a month, to work on finding your soul's mission or finding your calling, because now we know that they're not quite the same. I'm not doing that much in person anymore, mainly because of COVID, but also, like I said, I'm going to be turning 77 in a few days, actually, in a week, next Friday. So anyway, one of these days, I'm going to create an online course, I hope, maybe. I need to get busy on that, though, don't I? But I do teach this others. I like to teach teachers as well, who then can go out and find their mission to be the teacher and teach you. In the meantime, I'll keep doing it this way. Okay, Philip goes on to say, how to fulfill your mission by carrying out the calling begins with a single step in the direction you're being called. Once that step is taken, you will be shown the next step. It is, you know, I need to interrupt again because I have to say, especially those of us in the US, we are so impatient and we want the whole picture. We want to know everything before we even start. It doesn't work that way. Philip is telling you one step and then you'll be shown the next step. He goes on to say, it is often in hindsight rather than as you move forward that you will come to understand your calling and how you are fulfilling your soul's mission of love. Before we get at the next question, which is a pretty short answer, I want to say, give you my example. I jumped out of my mother's womb, pen in hand, and said, I'm a writer, I'm a poet. And I grew up with a lot of time alone, and I would pretend I was standing in front of an audience speaking to people. That was really, I look back at my life, and it was so clear what I was to do as a writer. I was very reluctant, and I was 49, 50 years old before I would accept my life as a psychic. And that's another story how that happened. But what I want you to know is we don't see that big picture. I didn't see how the two combined together. The calling, answering the soul's mission. My soul's mission is to use words to make the world right, to bring love and kindness and compassion into the world. Am I always successful? I don't think so. But we're all doing our best, aren't we? And we're all human. So allow yourself to be human. Okay, to look at this other question very quickly. To look at the question, drinking water, we are unclear as to the question, so this is what we say. Water is necessary for the human body to survive. Before drinking water, simply bless it. The blessing purifies the water. Okay, my friends, let me say hello to everybody here. Let's see, where did I leave off? With Lexi Luna coming on and saying happy Friday, Diana, Phillip, and all watching, sending lots of love and positive vibes to everybody. And then Theo sends a blessing to Lexi Luna. And then Mike is, oh, Mike, good to see you. It's always good to see our blessed men because it's harder in our world for a man to really be connected in the spirit because we don't allow them to be. And I happen to also know that Mike works on Friday afternoons, and so I'm glad to see you be able to join us. And Richard Bach has a similar style book back in the 80s, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. One of my favorite books, and I've used it in my awakening workshop, which is a long weekend workshop, Mike. In that workshop, I hide blue feathers around the room and use Jonathan Livingston Seagull's example of finding the blue feather telling my story of how hard it was for me to find a blue feather when it was right in front of me all the time. Then everybody is challenged in that workshop to find the blue feathers. So what I'm going to do, Mike, since you brought that up, and I think Richard Bach I love his books. I am challenging each of you, because in the book, and I'll let you go read it, but in the book, basically what you're learning from reading the book is you can create whatever you want to create. And when you create this, simply, let's say Richard Bach was talking to his, we'll call him his guide, his teacher, and the teacher said, "What do you want to create?" And Richard Bach said, "How about a blue feather?" And they were sitting in a restaurant. And so Richard Bach looked over, and on the mayonnaise jar was a blue feather. I'll quickly tell you my story. I decided after reading that book, this goes back into the 80s when the book came out, that I was going to spend a weekend finding my blue feather. And I lived in the city. So, there may not be a whole lot of blue feathers in the city. So I went out to the country. I did have a yard. I looked all through my yard. I looked at my neighbor's yard. I spent the weekend out looking out in the country. Never found a blue feather. Sunday night, I started to turn off the lights and go to bed. And my hand hit the switch, my inner voice said, "Stop, turn around." I stopped, lights still on. I turned around, and my kitty cat walked over and dumped over her basket of toys. And guess what fell out? A ball with a blue feather attached. The blue feathers are out there. I am challenging each and every one of you to go create a blue feather in your life, because what that will do is prove to you that you can create your own life, that you are the creator of your life, and that creation will help you realize your calling and fulfill that soul's mission. One other quick story, because it was one of my very first workshops, and Vicki was driving up, and Vicki was running late. When she got to the workshop, she came walking in and had all these white feathers in her hand. And she was explaining that driving up, the workshop were held here on my land, and driving up, it's a 2-lane road, and she was behind a truck of chickens. And so she'd started to pass, but all these white feathers flew out. And she said she just kept grabbing them and putting them in her car. She says, "Well, at least I'll take a bunch of white feathers. I didn't find a blue feather, but at least I'll have all these white feathers." She got to my house where the workshop was being held out in our eagle's nest. It's a furnished barn we call the eagle's nest. And she said she stepped out of the car, looked down, and at her feet was a blue feather. There are a couple of stories, my friends, to get you going. Go find your blue feather. The impossible is possible. Theo said, "I recently read his book, Illusion, such a mind-boggling read." They're great books. I love his books, so read them. He's got one about being a pilot, and he's got some different books. And if I'm recalling correctly, I remember seeing him for the first time. The way I learned about his books was the first time he was on, I want to say, Johnny Carson on it was one of the late shows way back when. Sometimes it's a disadvantage to being old, and sometimes it's an advantage. Okay, my friends, we're just going to open up here wherever we go. And there we go. I am hearing right, but I'm hearing left is important. If you heard right, we're just in sync. Our intuition's in sync. And the right side, if you heard left, that means that's a message that you need to listen to. So the right side, Theo says right. She got our intuitions in sync then. And here's the message for all of us. If you see not the beauty within you, how then can you see the beauty around you? If you see not the beauty within you, how then can you see the beauty around you? Doing beauty videos like this, I'm sitting here looking at myself. And believe me, if I go back and watch these videos, I am critical of myself. I don't see any beauty, and I lose the words because I'm starting to look at all those wrinkles, and look at this or look at that. And I have to catch myself and stop myself and say, stop it. So believe me, we all are critical of ourselves. And I'm just going to say to all of us, stop it. Love yourself. If you heard left, what is success if not doing what you want? Is it not that you are doing what you want? Oh, you got to think about that one. What is success if not doing what you want? Is it not that you are doing what you want? Whoa. Okay. I'm going to let you think about that one because that one takes a bit more thinking about than if you see not the beauty within you, how then can you see the beauty around you? I wish I could show you your own beauty. Go look in the mirror. It's there. Theo says facts with capital letters. Yes. All right, my friends. Piper's over laying right underneath me here. So she's coming over. There she goes. You can see her a little bit there. From us here at our home and to you, we thank you for being with us today. We thank you for watching these videos. And most of all, we thank you for sending love to yourself out into the world. Thank you for the love you send us. Thank you for the love that you receive from us. Theo says, peace and love and more butterflies. Thank you all. Until soon. We'll see you next Friday, if not before. Thanks. Love you.